What's up, everybody? Welcome to another video. Let's go ahead and recap UFC Vegas 92. Now, it is Monday. I'm a little late on this video, but it was Victoria Day weekend this weekend, so we were up at my cousin's cottage. And I got back last night, was in no condition to be making any videos, so here we are. Now, I didn't rewatch the fights, didn't make any notes of what had happened, so I'm going to go based off of the memory. But let's go ahead and talk about how we did in terms of picks. We had another 9-3 week with the weekend with the fight night. So over the past two events, we've gotten 18 correct and only 6 wrong. So we're on a crazy run right now. Hopefully we can continue that success for UFC 302, which will be not this weekend but next weekend. We'll talk about that when we get there. But we went 9-3, which is fantastic. So let's go over each fight and how we ended up doing in terms of the pick. So started off the night was Emily Ducote versus Vanessa Demopoulos. Now, I don't like to be biased when I have a specific fight. Like, obviously I pick every fight, so I don't like to be biased in terms of a decision, but the judges scored it a split decision victory for Vanessa Demopoulos, and I honestly I don't see how they came to that conclusion. Emily Ducote outstruck Vanessa over the course of those 3 rounds, 143 to 109. There was no takedowns. I'm pretty sure Ducote ended up on top of Demopoulos at the end of one of the rounds, maybe the second round, but Emily Ducote just did more throughout that fight. There was no significant moments where anybody got dropped. I don't think anybody got wobbled either. It doesn't typically happen in the women's MMA, especially at the lower weight class there. I believe that's straw weight. Yep. So I just don't know how they came to the conclusion to give Vanessa Demopoulos that win. I don't know if I'm seeing it in a biased way, but from what I remember, Ducote just did more. She was more active, and there wasn't any true significant moments to sway it in the direction of Demopoulos. One thing I will say though is Demopoulos did bring the volume this time that I was unsure she was going to bring during my breakdown. So good for her for upping the ante in terms of her striking, but I did not agree with that decision. I'm trying not to let bias play a factor in that, but I don't think she won that fight. I forgot to put this picture in. Let's just move on to Alatengheili and Clayton Rodrigues. So we started off the night with an incorrect decision or incorrect pick. We had Emily Ducote to beat Vanessa Demopoulos, but we got back on track with the underdog pick of Alatengheili. And I remember the success of Alatengheili for this fight was the wrestling. Now, a lot of analysts did not think that he was going to wrestle early on, but I'm pretty sure Alatengheili solidified 3 takedowns in this fight, at least one in each round, which he absolutely dominated Clayton Rodrigues in this fight. In terms of the striking, Clayton didn't really land anything significant from what I remember. Alatengheili nullified that striking and was able to put Rodrigues on his back and control him on the mat, which got him that unanimous decision victory. So great underdog pick there. We get back on track, and let's get into the third fight. Now, the third fight, this is one of the luckier picks that we had. So we had Carnelossi to defeat Pinheiro Rodrigues even after a 2-year layoff and a back surgery. And if we didn't get that disqualification victory, we were going to get this one wrong. Pinheiro Rodrigues came in. She was able to land those takedowns and control Carnelossi on the ground, which she hasn't been able to do in her previous fights in the UFC. So it was nice to see her garner that control, but I don't know if that's a sentiment to the improvements Rodrigues has made, or the fact that Carnelossi cannot defend a takedown if her life depended on it, and she doesn't really have that good of a get-up game. So Rodrigues was doing fantastic. She was absolutely dominating Carnelossi in this fight, but when she was in her guard, there was actually one point in the second round she landed an up kick right to the chin of Carnelossi that wobbled her. She dropped her after that in a sequence, got in her guard, and then proceeded to headbutt Carnelossi twice while she was in her guard, and that ultimately ended the fight in a disqualification victory for Carnelossi. So we did get lucky on this pick. Carnelossi definitely shouldn't have won that fight. if it went to the full 15 minutes, she was getting absolutely dominated. But that DQ was definitely warranted, in my opinion. It was back-to-back headbutts, and it looked pretty like it wasn't like an accident. It didn't look like an accident whatsoever. So I think that DQ was justified. We got lucky with that pick. Another underdog came through with a DQ. But regardless, we move on. So next up was Abus Magomedov going up against Warlley Alves. So this fight did not play out as I thought, but after the fight concluded, a lot of us actually should have thought that that's how the fight was going to go. Magomedov came in, knocked out Dustin Stoltzfus, as we were talking about during our breakdown video, lost to Sean Strickland, lost to Kyle Bahalio, so you got to imagine that he doesn't want to gas, he doesn't want to lose the fight, so his path to least resistance against somebody like Warlley Alves, who could land that big strike, is probably just wrestle him, and Magomedov has that background as well, so it was a good game plan on Abus's side, stay out of danger and dominate his opponent, which he ended up doing over the course of those 15 minutes. He landed those takedowns, put in some good work on the mat, had some good transitions to get into a dominant position to inflict damage on Warlley Alves, and he just absolutely dominated him. I thought he would eventually get a KO. He was fishing for some submissions, but ultimately that wrestling was the X factor in this fight, and we got another one correct in Magomedov, and I'm happy he got back in that win column. He was a big favorite, so I'm happy he got the job done. So far over the first 4 fights, we are 3-1 on picks. Next up, Tamiris Vidal fought Melissa Gatto, and this was a weird ending to a fight. Gatto was absolutely dominating Vidal. I think she had like over 4 minutes of control time in that first round. And even though Gatto went up a weight class, I didn't think she'd have an issue taking down Vidal, because in my breakdown video I said I'm not too convinced on Vidal's skills. I didn't think she was going to be able to have anything to offer Gatto in this fight, and that was basically what had happened. Gatto was the better fighter anywhere the fight took place, and the ending sequence was so weird. Gatto punched Vidal in the breast, and Vidal turned away holding it, thinking that the ref was going to stop the fight, even though that's not an illegal strike, and then Gatto ended up getting the TKO victory. So that was very odd. I think this is like 2 events in a row where there was a breast shot that in last week's at UFC St. Louis, I believe one of the girls, the fight actually got stopped so she can like chill for a second I don't know where the rule is that that's an illegal strike, but it was interesting that in back-to-back events we had a scenario like this. Obviously this one turned out differently because Gatto got a TKO victory out of it, but we had Melissa Gatto to win. Defend yourself at all times is what they say. You can't just expect the ref to stop the fight. Vidal turns away and Gatto just finishes her off. So what a weird ending to the fight, but regardless, we got Gatto. We had Gatto in that fight. I'm happy she got it done. Next up, Umar Sy. I was calling him Sy during the breakdown videos. I think it's Umar C. So Umar C fought Tokkos, and from what I saw, it didn't last very long. I don't think I watched this fight. We were doing something I don't remember exactly, but from what I did see, he absolutely dominated him and ended up finishing the fight on the ground. I believe it was by submission. I could be incorrect, but it was a good showing for a UFC debuter. Both of these fighters were UFC debuters, but Umar C came in and did what everybody thought he was going to do. I'm excited to see what his next matchup is against an actual UFC fighter. But good win for him. We had Umar C. I think he was the biggest favorite on the card. So I'm happy he got the job done. Next up, we had Victor Martinez going up against Tom Nolan. Now, one thing I learned from this fight, it ended in the first round by TKO victory for Tom Nolan, which is what I believe I predicted. So that was great. Now, there was no juice on that Tom Nolan KO line, so I didn't end up playing it, but Tom Nolan seems to not have a chin. Victor Martinez cracked him, and he kind of like stumbled Tom Nolan. He put him on his ass, and thankfully Tom Nolan was able to recover. He got back up. He landed a liver shot, I believe, that ended up putting Martinez down, and then Tom Nolan got on top and finished off the fight. But that chin of Tom Nolan it just seems to be non-existent. Nicholas Mata cracked him in his UFC debut, and then Martinez landed a nice, I want to say, left hand and just rocked Tom Nolan. So it's going to be really tricky to cap his fights in the future because I don't know how well his chin is going to hold up. That was a very scary spot because we had like a 5-leg parlay or something with my most confident picks, and Tom Nolan was in that most confident pick section. We ended up cashing it, thankfully, but not without worry because Tom Nolan's chin, not there. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in his next fight, but something to keep in mind when we're capping his next fight. All right, so this is the next fight that I got incorrect. Luana Pinheiro going up against Angela Hill. This is the 8th fight of the night, and so far we are 7-1. No, 6-1. So I was so impressed with Angela Hill's performance here. She did not look 39, and she still had the speed on the feet, still had the movement, and she showed off some wrestling and grappling. She knew that Luana Pinheiro had that judo background, and she stuffed most of those judo throw attempts from Pinheiro. Pinheiro really didn't land anything significant in that fight, and she just looked out of place. Angela Hill looked fantastic, was able to even get was it a guillotine? Yeah, she got a guillotine choke victory over Pinheiro, which was shocking to see. Angela Hill's not too much of a finisher. And yeah, like Pinheiro had zero to offer. We really dropped the ball in that breakdown. I thought Pinheiro was going to be able to land those big strikes. I couldn't really trust a 39-year-old Angela Hill to get the job done, but boy was I wrong. She proved me wrong for sure. She dominated this fight from the moment it started and ended up getting a submission victory as well to put the cherry on top of my absolutely awful pick on this fight. So good for Angela Hill. She's now going to be ranked 9th in the division. So even at 39, she is in the top 10, which is great. It would be nice to see her go on a little bit of a run here. Maybe, I don't think she'll end up fighting for a title, but it's good. It's cool to see her at her age find so much success. I don't know what's next for Pinheiro. She's going to be out of the top 10, I believe. Maybe like a 10 or 11, something like that. But we'll see what's next for these two ladies. Great job, Angela Hill. A beautiful performance here by Adrian Yanez. Vinicius Salvador, I do not think has a job in the UFC anymore. He is 0-3. I believe entry-level UFC contracts are for 4 fights, so we might see him one more time. But Adrian Yanez comes back, gets into the win column once again, and absolutely destroys Vinicius Salvador. Puts him away in that first round, I believe. Salvador's really got to stop playing around with that low hands, like Roy Jones Jr. style of defense. Put your hands up, put that guard up, and if you want to do your head movement, still do it, but have that back up with your guard up. Perfect performance by Yanez. He did get touched up a little bit in that first round. He himself needs to work on a little bit of head movement, but nevertheless, he showed off his power. He put away Salvador, which he was supposed to do in this matchup, and he did it in fantastic fashion. In the first round, he put him away. Great performance, Adrian Yanez. We ended up getting that one correct as well. All right, next, Themba Gorimbo against Ramiz Brahimaj. Now, this fight was basically a wrestling and grappling match. I didn't see any striking for what it's worth. I was kind of like in and out of the fight. I was watching this one on my phone. But Themba did a great job dominating in the wrestling and in the clinching. Brahimaj really didn't have much to offer in this fight from what I saw. Gorimbo did a great job staying safe from any possible submissions from a fighter that only has submission victories. So that was good to see. I'm happy Themba got the win. But it was a pretty boring fight, to say the least. We ended up picking Gorimbo as well, so we did fantastic on this card in terms of picks. Next up, Chaos Williams against Carlston Harris. Now, Chaos Williams knocks out Harris in that first round with a big overhand right, I believe, or a right hook of some sort, but he landed flush on Carlston Harris and put him away. We had Chaos Williams in this fight as well, and I'm happy with the outcome. I mean, Carlston Harris he's a tricky fighter for a lot of people, but I figured Chaos, even though he was out of the octagon for a year and prior to that fight was out for another year, He didn't really have a good performance against Bedoya, but I've learned not to judge fighters only by their most recent performance. Like, obviously take it into consideration, but don't only look at the most recent performance and then say, oh, he's going to lose because of him having a bad performance in his last fight. Bedoya seemed to be a little bit trickier for Chaos for some reason. I don't know what it is, but he didn't really... I don't think he won that fight, even though the judges gave him a split decision for Chaos. But I wasn't going to just negate the fact that this guy's an absolute tank, and he hits like a train. So that's exactly what I thought in this matchup. The guy had great enough defense to fend off that threat from Carlson Harris, and he was going to be the better striker and the more powerful striker in this matchup, which ended up being the case. It didn't even end up going on the ground at all. Chaos Williams put away Carlson Harris in that first round and looked great. So good he had the win. Good return victory for Chaos Williams. I'm excited to see what is next for him, because he has that exciting style that we all love. So we ended up getting that one as well. Now the main event of the evening, Edson Barboza against Lerone Murphy. So this is the third and final fight that we got wrong on this event, and we picked Barboza to win. It's just interesting to me because sometimes I'll pick against a fighter because their age, and then I'll pick just as old of a fighter and not take it into consideration. So I'm talking about the Angela Hill fight. Angela Hill hadn't shown any signs of slowing down, but I said I couldn't trust her at 39 because I'm not sure how she's going to come in. She's eventually going to start slowing down. But then I go to the Edson Barboza side where he also wasn't showing any signs of decline. And I was like, he looked fantastic in that Sadiq Youssef fight outside of that first round, but he survived. He had that. He still had the want to compete, because a lot of people, especially at Barboza's age, could have just packed it in that first round. And I said to myself, even if that goes down in this Lerone Murphy fight, he's not going anywhere. And that ended up being the case, because Murphy had landed an incredible amount of strikes on Barboza's head in that fight, and Barboza did not have any signs of quit in that matchup. And so it's just interesting that I end up picking against the older fighter a lot of the times, especially if they're pushing 40. But in this fight particularly, I didn't take that into consideration whatsoever. Barboza did definitely show his age in this fight. He was finding success again in this fight. Don't get me wrong. It's not like he was completely a fish out of water, but Lerone Murphy absolutely dominated this fight. He won every single round, in my opinion. The most significant moment of that fight for Barboza was that up kick that he landed on Lerone Murphy, I believe at the end of the second, with like 1 or 2 seconds left in the fight. So if that was any earlier on in that round, we don't know how it would have ended up playing out. But nevertheless, Lerone Murphy looked great on the feet. He mixed in that wrestling as well to take away that danger factor from Barboza, because we know even at this age, even at from the first to the 25th minute, he is dangerous. Barboza can land that one strike that puts you away. So it was just an overall utter domination from Lerone Murphy. I thought Barboza would be the one to take that 0 from him, but because he hadn't shown signs of slowing down yet, but he did in this fight. He didn't look... He was kind of one step behind. He still found his shots on the feet a little bit, but he was one step behind. Couldn't really deal with the wrestling takedown. So it's going to be interesting to see what Barboza does next. I'm excited to see Lerone Murphy back in there. This was his first main event. It was his first 5-round fight, and he looked great throughout the entire thing. So he seems to be a problem in the featherweight division, honestly, after doing that to a dangerous fighter like Barboza, and knowing the fact that he has that cardio as well now. It's going to be nice to see how he performs in his next fight. And yeah, so overall, great card. We went 9-3 once again. And we have UFC 302 to look forward to. Now, I might do 2 breakdown videos. One, just running through it quickly and just like my initial thoughts about it. And then next week, we'll talk about an actual breakdown like we typically do. We'll look at both fighters, previous matchups, styles, how they perform, all this stuff, blah, 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 how we usually do. But I think I might do 2 breakdown videos, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more UFC content. Make sure to drop a comment down below on what you thought about these fights, whether you agreed or disagreed with my picks, and I just want to hear from you guys. So drop some comments down below as well. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.